So I want to welcome everybody today. Thank you for joining. This is part of our series on conversations with CCNY Chemical Engineering PhD students. I'm Elizabeth Bittinger. I am an assistant professor in chemical engineering at City College of New York, and also the director of graduate studies in chemical engineering. And today's topic is why pick to do a PhD? Conversation with CCNY Chemical Engineering graduate students. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that please have your mic turned off to make sure that we can hear the conversation well. And then also, please direct your questions to Professor Alexander Kouzis in the chat, and we will call on you during the question and answer period. We're going to have a series of discussion points first to kind of get the session going, and then we'll open it up for questions. And so we're going to see if we can get the other participants' videos on. If Dennis, Brendan, Ankit, and Tasnuba, can you turn your videos on? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Stop sharing so that we can see you better. Okay, so on this Q&A session today, or conversation, we have 4 PhD students in chemical engineering. So we have Dennis Bergner, we have Tasnuba Matoshi, we have Brendan Hawkins, and we have Ankit Kante. And then we also have Professor Alexander Kouzis, who is also part of the chemical engineering department, and he's co-moderating this activity today.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, hi. All right. So I think what's important to start with is to get to know all of you as our guests. And so, Dennis, would you like to start? Can you, in just 1 to 2 minutes, please introduce yourself, like maybe what year you're in the program, where you came from, your undergraduate institution, any work experience, a little bit about who you're doing your research with and the topic.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm Dennis, and I am from Long Island, New York. I first came to New York City for my undergraduate at Cooper Union, also in chemical engineering. And then I immediately went from my undergraduate program here to City College to the PhD program, where I am currently studying on the rheology of gas hydrates and flow assurance with Professor Jeff Morris.
Tasnuba, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Tasnuba Motashi. I am originally from Bangladesh, and I did my undergrad in chemical engineering too from Stony Brook University in New York. And after completing undergrad in 2016, I immediately joined a PhD in CCNY. And right now I work with Dr. Marco Castaldi, and my project involves investigation of reactions in municipal solid waste bottom ash.
Thank you. Ankit?
Hi everyone, I'm Ankit Kante. I'm from India. I did my undergrad at ICT, Institute of Chemical Technology in chemical engineering. And then I came to CCNY in 2016. I'm the batchmate of Brendan and Tasnuba, basically. My research areas is mostly in biomolecules and interfacial science, and I'm co-advised by Professor Raymond Tu and Professor Charles Maldarelli. And the project is mostly in collaboration with the Argonne National Labs and Bristol Myers Squibb Pharmaceutical Company.
And Brendan?
So I'm Brendan Hawkins. I grew up in Massachusetts and went to undergrad at Tufts University in Boston and graduated in 2011 in chemical engineering. And after I graduated, I moved to New York and worked for 5 years as an energy consulting engineer for construction in New York City, and then started my PhD in 2016. and I've been working on studying rechargeable zinc alkaline batteries with collaboration with Sandia National Labs, and I'll be working on batteries for spaceflight and planetary missions with NASA in the future.
So, you know, the topic of today's meeting is on why did you pick to do a PhD? Brendan, would you like to start and explain a little bit why you decided to pick to do a PhD?
Sure. So when I graduated undergrad, I knew that I did not want to do a PhD. So I went into industry. And after I was working there for 2 to 3 years, maybe, you know, I liked what I was doing, but I realized that my options of what I could do for that company were going to be limited. So I wanted to do finite element modeling, and my superiors that I could not do it because I didn't have a master's or a PhD. I guess it was too much of a liability. So I knew that I wanted to do either a master's or a PhD, but I ended up doing the PhD because I wanted to do research. I knew I wanted to do research and not just classes. So that's how I decided.
Thank you. Anki, do you want to explain why you picked to do a PhD?
Sure. So my engagement in going into PhD program basically initiated when I was in my second year of my undergrad. So I was been working with one of our professors in ICT, and in the group environment where I was working, I was exposed to new research areas and like how basically a PhD student works. That was the exposure given to us. And then eventually in my third and fourth year, I got interested in more and more other projects, trying to gain some knowledge in some other fields. And that's where I decided that, hey, I need to get an expertise in one of the particular areas, mostly colloidal science. And that's how I basically decided to go for a PhD program and not pick up any jobs as Brendan did right after his undergrad.
And Tasneema, would you like to share your process?
Yes, of course. I always knew I wanted to go to grad school. I thought I would go for master's first, but during my third year as an undergrad, when I was working in my senior thesis program, I was working with some PhD students. So I got to know how the research lab works, how the relationship with the advisor works, and I really liked it. And I realized I do want to go into academia. And for that, the straightforward option is to get a PhD. So that's why I started applying.
And Dennis, how about you?
So when I first was looking into doing a PhD, I didn't initially have a draw to it. I was thinking about grad school. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a master's or a PhD. And when I was in my senior year of undergrad, all my friends were applying and getting job offers. So that was a bit of a hamper on my spirits, but I still decided to commit to it since I attended several professional society meetings, either through AICHE or through the Chemist Club chapter at my school, and just attended these talks about people going into what kind of research you need in having a PhD is useful for, and like what types of careers you can go on after getting a PhD. And so after attending those, since I had always found a interest in research, and those just further catalyzed those ideas and spawned my commitment to a PhD.
Okay, so I think Dennis, you touched a little bit on, you know, you're deciding master's, PhD, grad school at all. And Brendan, you mentioned it, Tasneeva did as well. So what, we'll start with Dennis. You know, why did you, you know, what really went into that decision a little bit more in depth about master's versus PhD, and what will the PhD actually get you compared to a master's?
So for at least at Cooper Union, there were master's student programs available, but no PhD programs. And from what I understood from a master's, it's like, oh, you get to expand a bit more on the research aspects of your undergrad. but it's more so just an expansion on like the basics that you can get from undergrad, and enables you to specialize a little bit more. While for a PhD, that you just get fully engrossed in the topic that you want to, that you and your advisor are working on together. And that enables you to get really good hands-on research and explore different techniques and really develop a unique skill set for whichever topic you desire to tackle.
Thank you. Brendan, would you like to talk on the topic about the master's versus the PhD?
Yeah. So yeah, I think Dennis hit it. I mean, master's sort of expands on your base that you've built as an undergrad, but as a PhD, you can really, really dig in to one project, one area, and end up being essentially the most knowledgeable person in the world on that one very specific thing. And I think in addition to that, you also, you get skills, like project management skills that you otherwise would not get just through, figuring out how to complete such a specific project. And I think that's a very, very valuable skill that you get as a PhD that you wouldn't as a master's student.
Yeah. Tasniva, you also said you toyed with the idea of a master's first or a PhD. You want to talk a little bit?
Yes. Once I decided that I wanted to go into academia, the decision was pretty straightforward. So for people who want to go to academia, they eventually need the PhD to climb that ladder of assistant professor to professor. So it's the choice of, I guess, if to do it sooner than later. You can do it master's first and then PhD. I decided to get it over with altogether.
Yeah. So maybe Tasniva, you can start in this conversation. How did you identify that CCNY was the right place to do your PhD at?
For me, one of the biggest reasons behind choosing CCNY was the location. I wanted to stay in a big city, and also particularly New York City. But there are other schools in New York City too that have graduate programs in chemical engineering, but I chose CCNY because some of my professors at Stony Brook advised me that even though CCNY is a small school, the graduate program, especially the research facilities here, are comparatively better than some big schools as well, and I should really look into it. And once I attended the school and visited the school and the facilities, it seemed like it had a very diverse set of research options, which was things that I was interested in. So that's why I decided to stay here.
Okay, thank you. Kate, you haven't had a chance to speak for a little bit. You want to share why you picked CCNY?
Sure. So for me, coming basically from India, it was a heavy decision to make on to go to abroad. And for besides research, the other important factors was location and the weather. So I do not like cold weather, so it was straightforward that I was not going to go to like Minnesota or Chicago areas, which is for windy or snowy. So for me, coming from Mumbai also, I wanted to stay somewhere in the city. So New York was kind of an option for me. But the most important thing was the research areas that I want to see myself for the next 5 years and develop my career in. With CCNY was a good fit because it has a broad research areas of colloidal to nanoparticles to interfacial science to green chemistry. So there's like many opportunities when you go into such a broad spectrum of areas or a school, because then you can get to pick whatever you want based on the projects that are available. So that was most the decision factor, but deciding factor. But yes, the location and the weather were the important factors for me too. So that's how I chose to come to CCNY.
All right, how'd the weather work out for you?
Pretty good. It's better in New York as compared to, like, I have been going to Argonne National Lab, so it's in Chicago, and it's super windy. Like, I basically do not come out of the lab, and I just stay inside, do experiments, because it's just, I cannot just handle the cold weather. That's why.
Okay. Brendan, how about you? Why did you pick CCNY?
So like Tasnuva, I knew I wanted to be in a city. So I basically only applied to schools and cities, and then really narrowed my list down based on those schools that had good battery research. Because I knew I wanted to do battery research. So I talked to the professors at each of the different schools, and I was really impressed by the diversity of professors that were doing battery research and the different kinds of battery research at City College. So that kind of nailed it for me. And in addition, I had been living in New York and I love this city, so I stayed here.
Okay, thank you. And Dennis.
So I was first interested in City College because of, like most of the others, the types of research going on. Since just I'm very interested in just building up ideas from a smaller scale and building upon them to try and develop different models or studies for things at larger scales. And there's a lot of that here at City College, especially with the Levitch Institute. And so that very much attracted me. And at Cooper Union, which is in the city as well, City College actually sent down one of its Professor Mshinsky, as well as some of the PhD students at the time, to talk about this research. And that's when I found out just exactly all about this stuff, as well as got a better sense of the kind of community that we have here within the chemical engineering department. And that was very attractive to me. So just like seeing how well everyone, like easily everyone interacted with one another.
And so it seems like location has a role, and research has a role, and also the community that you'll be part of has a role in picking the school that you want to spend your time at for your PhD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Professor Cruz, do you have any questions?
Yes, there's a couple of questions from our panelists.
Okay.
The first question comes from Agata. Agata, if you don't mind, you can address your question directly to the panel.
Yeah, sure. So my main question is, what kind of jobs do you each individually hope to attain after you graduate? What kind of jobs are there besides industry research and academia? And are you worried at all that for jobs besides academia and industry research, such as like a manufacturing job or supply chain, things like that, do you think you'll be overqualified?
All right. Who would like to take that question first?
I can start.
Thank you.
I mean, I know that I want to do research, but I also know that a lot of people, you build so much math that you can really do anything that uses modeling. So there are a lot of like financial analysts that come out of chemical engineering PhD programs. I know like somebody just graduated and is doing that now. And I mean, it's tough to know if you'll be overqualified for a job. Or for me to know, because I haven't graduated and I haven't been looking for those jobs. But I would think that any job that I am overqualified for is not a job I want to have.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would also touch base on this question. It's a very good question besides if people are thinking of choosing a different career than an industry or academia. So yes, as Brendan correctly mentioned, one of our recent alumni from Levitch Institute is being transferred directly to the financial area now. So he was like, oh, I'm enough of science now, so I want to do something in financial area. And how PhD helps is basically his research was mostly in fluid dynamics. So he was involved in computational modeling, solving too many equations, like how to basically use Python codes or C++ codes, which in some areas like help you to put above the rest of the candidates when you're applying for jobs, because you do have a professional degree and then you do have very broad knowledge of one particular area. So I think that kind of helps you and sets you aside from the crowd and gives you an opportunity to stand out, basically, if you have a PhD degree. So yeah.
Dennis or Tasnuva, do you have any comments to add to that?
I think the same, that PhD degree gives you a lot of other skills too, computational modeling and coding. So in case after 5 years you decide that you don't be in this area anymore, I don't think you will be stuck. Even though I didn't think about that personally myself ever, but if I do choose to leave academia or don't want to go to industry, I don't think I'll be stuck because I have gathered enough skills to use it otherwise.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that since I've been enjoying the modeling and computational side of the research that I've been doing, and realized that it can be applicable to other positions. But I think I'm still on the side of applying for industrial positions.
Any of you thought about entrepreneurial activities?
Been too busy researching.
But it's certainly
Not
something
yet.
qualified for, right? You know, that
Yeah.
skills for something else that you could be involved with.
Yeah, I'll say also supply chain management, since you brought that up specifically, I would not imagine that a PhD would make you overqualified to work in that field. That would make you coveted to work in that field, because getting a PhD really does hone your project management skills, and that's
and how much, especially all the logistics and know-how required to like succeed in that field.
All right, we have 2 more questions. Agata has 1 more, so we let Agata go forward with her question. It's directed to Desnuva, and then Mike Morello wants to ask a question as well. So let's start off with Agata, and then Mike, you've got the microphone, okay?
Thank you so much for answering my questions. I think that really helped a lot. So my question for Tasnuva was, how did you know you wanted to go into academia? Was there a point in your undergrad career, maybe you were a TA, that really set you on that path?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I was working with on my senior thesis when I really got involved on how to work in a lab in a research environment, and how I actually worked with some PhD students. In addition to that, I was involved in some REU programs who are undergraduate researchers working in different projects during the summer. And then I was helping a team of high schoolers on how to do their research, which showed me that I actually quite like teaching or mentoring. And also I was TAing as an undergrad too. At that point, as you guessed, I really like TAing. And once I joined the PhD program, some of the PhD program, including ours, makes it mandatory for you to TA. Some of the courses. When I did it during my second year, it reconfirmed my decision that I want to go into academia because I really love TAing. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Michael?
Yes, thanks everyone for being here today. This is really cool. My question is, did you know exactly what you wanted to research before you were admitted into the CCNY program, or was that something that you figured out the first year and then drew naturally towards one group versus another?
I can start off with that. That's my favorite question, because I guess most of the seniors are deciding, oh, if we choose a PhD program, which research area do we go on to, or how to choose about that. So for me, since my undergrad research was mostly on catalysis, I really wanted to broaden my skills in catalysis. But then when I came to CCNY, how CCNY holds the program is basically every professor talks about their research areas and how many projects they have, and then the students can basically decide which group they want to join into. So talking to the professors there and the students changed my mind from going from catalysis, and now I'm in the interfacial science field, because then I realized keeping one specific research area might not be a good choice when you're looking for PhD schools. It's better to keep your research area broader enough, so whenever you go to any other school or talk to any professors, the talking to people basically helps you to decide if you want to join this research area or not. So like the main key was talking to people, the professors and the students, which helps you to guide, because it's a big decision, right? You're going to stuck with that area for 5 years or 6 years of your life for the next, while pursuing PhD. So for me, it was more like engaging or setting up meetings with the professors and then deciding how the student-professor relation will be, and if the research area is good enough for me for the next 5 years. So yeah.
Yeah, when I initially joined City College, I was initially drawn by the energy storage and the battery research, and since those topics I felt were very pressing. But during my undergrad, I got a taste of computational work, and I enjoyed it for that brief amount of time. But then upon talking with professors, I realized that I could greatly expand upon this more and develop like a complete tool set with it. And that was very attractive to me. And that's what led me to the working with Jeff Morris on these modeling of the gas hydrates.
So I did the opposite. I knew that I wanted to work on batteries, but I was kind of a rarity because I'd worked for 5 years already as an energy consultant, and I knew that the field that I was working in was being held back by a lack of appropriate batteries to be applied. So I knew what I wanted to do. However, when I was picking professors that I wanted to work with, you pick 3 professors. You just make a list as sort of a draft of who you get, and a professor that Ankit's working on that works in fluids and interfaces ended up making my list just because I really liked him and I could see myself working with him. So, you might think you know what you want going in, and your opinion could totally change for a number of reasons.
So unlike Brendan, I joined PhD right after my undergrad, right? And I think that when you're fresh out of an undergrad, it's really hard to know exactly which research you want to work on, because you can only have so much experience from your undergraduate research. So I think it's better to have a more open-minded approach to it. And I think it's absolutely important to put just as much importance in choosing your advisor and the team as the research topic itself, because you're committing yourself to that team for 5 years. So it is important for you to like the professor, like the environment and the research topic.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
Do we have any other additional questions from the audience right now?
Not from the audience, but may I ask a question?
Please.
So, and this goes to all the panelists. If somebody were to ask you, what is the thing you enjoy the most at CCNY, and what is the thing you dislike the most, what would your answer be?
I say I dislike making $30,000 in New York City.
Well, you make more than that.
Yeah.
But what is it that you like the most also?
I just love doing research. So, I mean, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. And it's an investment in your future. So I wouldn't be able to do this without making that amount of money for now. And then in the future, hopefully a little bit more. But the research is definitely what I like the most. And City College specifically is great because there are so many facilities and so many different pieces of equipment that you can use. And so really you can pretty much do whatever experiments you want with the tools that you have at hand on campus. And so that's definitely a big plus of City College.
So I will go ahead with what I like about CCNY first. So yes, research is important. I love doing research, and that's why we are in the PhD program. But the most important thing, which I feel is the community of the students at CCNY. We are always close to each other. Basically, we host events. I have been personally in the recruitment chair event, and I'm the alumni chair. So it basically gives you some extra skills about how to talk with our alumni and get engaged and get them engaged into our program. and other stuff like we usually have our annual ski trips that we go to in which only students are allowed. So like professors are not there, so students can enjoy basically. So those are the times basically where yes, we do something besides research, and that's what I like about CCNY. So it's not only research focused, but there are some fun activities which the students arrange and enjoy. And the thing which I dislike is, yes, the stipend, it's less, but there's a good news that the stipend has recently increased. So Professor Bittinger can focus on that later on and give you more details. But then, yeah, like there's nothing much to dislike about CCNY. Like if you love your research and what you're doing, I think it should be fine, and you can enjoy the next 5 to 6 years of your life doing PhD. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat as Ankit of I really like the community here. Like that's what drew me here, and being able to like hang out with all the other PhD students and cooperate with one another, since you can even ask them about like your own research topics. So like if you're struggling with a problem, you can go to another student and they'll definitely at least try to help you out with it and maybe even solve it. And solving problems with my research is just very fulfilling to me. Like whenever I'm writing code and it actually runs without any errors and does something that's not completely wacky, it makes me so happy, and I just like, yes. As for something I dislike about CCNY, I'd probably say like the paperwork of just like getting things filing in the right places and to the right people. That's probably my least favorite thing, but you're not doing that every day, at least you shouldn't.
That's Nuva? Yeah.
Yeah, so I also like the environment, and I think that it's exceptional how close-knit our PhD department is, because I know in a lot of other departments, even in our college or in other colleges, are not like that. Because I think a part of it is because everyone, even though they are working in different research groups, we have a shared office space where everyone sits. So we have more FaceTime with each other, and we are very good friends. We become good friends eventually, and everyone is there for each other. There's a very positive vibe going around, which I think is very amazing, and I'm thankful for it. And something that I hate, something that I did not like, but it has been solved now. So I'm just going to mention it. When I joined PhD in 2016, in the first 2 years, we were pretty much very burdened with a lot of coursework. So I did not like that. I felt very stressed, but now the coursework, the number of courses and credits that need to be taken has been reduced. So that problem has been solved.
So, okay, yes, please. Yeah.
Before we move on, I wanted to add, because Tasnuva just reminded me, is like something additionally that is unique to City College, I think, is the collaborations between professors and like the openness of ideas and equipment. Like I'm not advised by you, Professor Bittinger, but I've gone into your lab, who knows how many times to use your equipment, and you let me use it. You don't demand to be on my papers. It's very open. There's a sort of a, what's the word? People are very willing to share. And I think that that's something that I've heard from my other friends that do PhDs it's not the case at other schools. People can be very private, and that's a great thing about our school.
And I also think that extends to the amount of like co-advised PhDs as well, since there's a fair number of people that have like 2 or more advisors, I feel.
Yes.
But there is also a truth, like when I say that, yeah, we love research, there'll be some times during the PhD where something is not working. Like you'll be stuck with the ideas, like there's no literature available, the analysis is not working, but that's the part of the PhD program. Like you basically develop those skills and then tackle those problems. So that's another skill set in your pocket, right? So yeah, I think PhD helps to develop a person in many ways. So yeah.
Before we move on, I think I'll just add a couple of programmatic comments about I think you guys brought up the coursework. Yes. So for our students that are in their second year and more junior, so any new students, we now require 33 credits of coursework that's over the first 2 years instead of 48 credits of coursework. So that's a substantial reduction. Students can still take more courses if they wish, but now they can really focus on courses that are going to be helpful towards their interests and their research area instead of just trying to fill a slot. And so I think that was a significant improvement that we were able to have for the program. And then the other one was about the support. So students receive tuition support and a stipend. You know, Brendan, you may also be a little bit harder on this since you worked full time for a while. It's a little harder to come back.
Tough condition.
Yeah, though we also recognize that it's important to continually be competitive with the stipends, and so we are currently at in the fall moving to 35K and have plans to move up to 40K per year support plus tuition. So hopefully that will ease some of your concerns there as well.
Cool. There's an additional question from Mike for the panelists. Mike, go ahead.
I don't remember who started talking about it, but what is it like when writing, like the grant writing process and applying for different projects to research with your mentor and your research group in general?
So, okay, I can start. During your first year of your PhD program or your first semester, we do have a course called as Research Fundamentals that is compulsory for all PhD students. And we have some professors giving talks about how to write grant proposals like for NSF or for NIH. So that's where it helps you to basically get a strategy of how to plan on writing, on getting fundings. And second, there's always professor with you throughout the program. So their support is there. You can talk to them. You can write some drafts and then back and forth it goes for corrections. So it helps you to basically write a good proposal if you are intending to during your PhD program. So yeah, like you are being trained for that, and you will get trained more when you write more manuscripts and so on. So I think it's like the part of the PhD process. So yeah.
I'll add that though you can contribute to writing grants, at least as far as it's been for me, I haven't had to write grants. Like I haven't had to apply for money. My professors have been well funded and I get funded through that. And I think that's generally the case at the school. You're not fighting for funding. Yeah, not as far as I know.
Yeah, that's the case for me too.
Right. Yeah, students are not self-funded.
Yes.
And so have you had a chance to participate in proposal writing at all to learn about the process more? Anybody?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I like writing for time at a national lab, like at the Beamline and at Brookhaven. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. We have been writing proposal for the past 3 years now for the Argonne National Lab. So yeah, there's some kind of engagement. Yeah.
Agata has another question. Go ahead, Agata.
My question is to Brendan. Do you ever wish that you entered the PhD program right after your undergrad career? How did those 5 years of being a consultant impact your path?
So I definitely was not ready for a PhD after undergrad. I was, yeah, like pretty done. I thought I was done with school. But I do wish that I wasn't working for 5 years. I think I could have done with maybe 3. But I think that, so I'm glad that I worked because I really got a feel for like what having a job actually is. And I didn't like a lot of the aspects of what I was doing with just an undergraduate degree. I felt like I was kind of just like, you know, like not an errand boy, but doing sort of mindless work that I felt like anyone could do. And so that really led me to the decision to go to grad school, and the knowledge that I got about, that battery technology was not up to where it needed to be. Like, I never would have known that coming out of undergrad. I only knew that from being in the field. So it was a very valuable experience for me to work, but I have loved this so much more than I ever loved my job. So.
Anybody else want to comment on that? That maybe any of you wish that you had done anything beforehand, or maybe a co-op experience or something influenced it, or other things that influenced your preparation?
So during my undergrad program, we are supposed to do an internship with a company. Like, that's a part of our school, like it's a compulsory thing that we have to do. And I got selected to work with a consultant firm, and I didn't like the environment there basically. And like, yes, it's too hectic. Like for the PhD program, it's more professional. Like, you don't have to be like, you have to come to school like 9 to 5, or it's something like restrictive. You have more freedom basically to work towards your research. So that's kind of thing which I felt like is not in the company going right from undergrad. And that's why I decided to like go for a PhD program. So yeah.
Okay. So do we have any other questions at the moment?
No, we do not, Elizabeth.
Okay, so I can ask another question. And this kind of trails into some of the conversation that we've been going on right now. Is, in your opinion, what was the most important thing for you in preparing to be able to do a PhD?
For me, it was easily my research experience, because if not for that, I would not have anything to write in my SOP, the statement of I forgot what it's called.
Purpose.
State of purpose, yeah.
Yeah, state of purpose, SOP, yeah. And also, when I was talking to different professors or emailing different professors to different schools, I had to start off on like some research experience that this is what I've worked on. I want to work on these different things. But I think that if I did not have any research experience, it would have been very, very hard for me to try, if not impossible, but very hard. Yeah. And the other things are a good score in GRE and a good GPA. That's pretty basic.
Others?
For me, it was working. That definitely was, I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't have worked. And I just talked about that. But yeah, it's, there's not much I feel like there's not much you can do to prepare. Everyone's going to have a different reason of what was the most important thing for them, but there's not much you can do to prepare for it. It's a unique experience.
Yeah.
So okay, go ahead, Dennis.
Just over the course of my undergrad, when I was doing research with several professors, or with 2 professors, just understanding all the thought behind it and what can be gained from doing that research just instilled me with like seeing just like the value that it can that can be gained from performing it, and just seeing all that it can lead on to. It just invigorated me with drive to do it. And so that's really like doing research with them was kind of like the spark that wanted me to continue that on within my PhD.
Yeah, so for me, yes, research is important because that adds an experience in your resume or something like that. So that kind of helps to stand out from other applicants who are applying. But then also, besides good score in GRE or TOEFL, if you are an international student, I think the experience of like choosing schools, like narrowing down the schools that you want to apply to, which research areas is some schools are specific into, like for example, like CCNY is more known for fluids or green chemistry or biomolecules. So like that experience to basically think about different schools in the US and some other countries that was kind of a unique experience for me while applying for PhD. So that was kind of something new, which you don't learn during your undergrad program, like which no one teaches you, but you have to do it yourself because you have to set your career for yourself, right? So yeah, that was kind of something new for me while applying for the PhD.
So some research background certainly helped to try it out before you make the big long-term commitment. Hearing that.
Yeah.
But then also, doing a little bit of homework, and of course, the grades and test scores certainly can help open more doors for you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions that we have?
There are no more questions from the audience.
Okay, so I think maybe we can kind of wrap up here with, I think, a final closing question is, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to decide if they want to do a PhD? Ankit, do you want to start with that?
Sure. So one advice would be, no matter which school you choose for your PhD, talk to the students. Like those are the ones who are going to tell you the reality of what the research group is or what's the situation in the school. Even when you're applying to schools, make sure that if you shoot some emails to the professors or to the students in the group, maybe like you send 20 emails and 1 or 2 replies from that, it's still a bonus for you, right? Maybe that will give you an opportunity to decide or think like if this school or the research group is good to work with or not. So that's what I've learned during my whole PhD. So the main thing which I would focus is talk to the students. That will help you a lot.
Yeah, I would add with that, talk to the professor as well, because I think that do not underestimate the relationship between you and your advisor and you and your teammates when making your ultimate decision on which school or which research to join. Because you can't pick the perfect subject that you're very passionate about and still hate your work if the environment is not right for you.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat with you, Tashnuva, of just making sure getting to know who your advisor is going to be, and understanding that dynamic is definitely key, since you're going to be working with this person and the other people in the group for the next 5 or however long years.
I would say, so I'll say, if you're deciding whether or not to do a PhD, you should know that it's very different to undergrad. So it's its own thing. It's not like an extension of undergraduate studies. So like if you're really, really good at classes, you might not be very good at research. If you weren't very good at classes, you might be great at research. So don't base the decision of whether or not you want to do a PhD based on whether or not you enjoyed your classes. It's a lot more than that. It's a very unique experience.
Okay. Do we have any final remarks? I'll wrap up with a few program edit things and talk about the next in the series in a moment. But
Elizabeth,
yes.
there was one last minute question that came just as I say no more questions. Michael, go ahead.
So this might be almost like a trick question, but how are you doing research and how are you handling research right now? Like just because you can't go to the lab, and what are ways that maybe we can start to think about doing that as undergrads, because maybe we could do it on our own?
Well, good question and good timing for this question because of this COVID-19. Yes, we are not being able to do experiments, but we have a ton of literature to go through, right? So that's most of the key thing in your PhD, where you want to know what others are doing in your field and to keep on top of everything, basically, like if you're doing the same stuff or is somebody competing with you and publishing some papers. So this is a good time to basically narrow down the papers that you want to read, which you wanted to read for so long, and this is the best time because you cannot do any experiments as such. And the other thing, for me, Tasnuva, and mostly Brendan here, who are senior students, we have been trying to write our thesis down because we are close to graduation now. So yeah, if not experiments, there is other stuff also to do, like literature or thesis writing. So yeah.
And yeah, I'm in my second year right now, so I'm not working on my thesis yet. I'm working on my second exam, and so I still have that keeping me busy. And I've definitely been leaning a lot more into the computational side of my research, so that's been keeping me going throughout these times.
I have a lot of experimental data that hasn't been analyzed that I didn't get time to analyze before that I'm working on. Depends, if this lasts too long, I might run out of data to analyze, but I always have papers to write, papers to read.
Yeah, I would say as an undergrad, if you're looking at schools, research the schools, research the professors. If there are professors whose work you think is interesting, then read their papers, like break their papers out, see what specifics they're doing. Yeah, there's plenty that I've been able to do, reading and writing.
And also attending webinars, like not only this that you have been attending, but there's several webinars by ACHE or some companies about how an instrument works. So if you're just interested, or you know that, let's say if you want to work in batteries, so you're going to use some device, let's say FTIR or like IRRAS or something like that. So electrochemistry knowledge if you want to know. So there are many webinars which have been going on. So this is the best time basically to get involved yourself in doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, I attended a webinar this morning on electrochemical impedance spectroscopy. There you
go.
go.
Yeah, I did myself too. There's one with Biolene, so it's more for interfacial stuff. So yeah, it's quite good. Like all these organizations have been doing something good. So the community is being engaged, even if you're working virtually. So yeah, that kind of helps.
A number of you are currently working on submitting or have recently submitted manuscripts as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good thing. And Dennis, don't worry there, right?
Yeah.
The early start. You know, yeah. So proposing the work first. That's what comes first. Okay, and okay, great. Those are great questions. Any other things that anybody would like to add? From the panelists?
I just enjoyed the panel, and I thought it was a great idea just to help get a better sense of how we function around here.
Yeah, I hope this was helpful to the students listening.
Yeah, I wish good luck to everyone.
Yeah, good luck to everyone. Please be safe and stay healthy. But if you have any other questions, just feel free to ask us. Okay.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up with going back to the slides that we started with. And so this is what we had today. So I want to thank the panelists again and thank Professor Cruzes for your assistance in running this as well. It's very helpful for that. And then I also want to just point out that this is part of a series. We are going to have another one a week from today on what's it like to do a PhD. And so you're going to hear even more in depth about what's it like actually during the studies. Oops, I have this on timer. And we'll have a new set of students who hear different perspectives of that. And this is going to be part of a series, and so you can find more on our department website. Also, just highlighting that we are a very research active department, and you can see some of the numbers here on our research activity and the number of awards that our department has been identified for. And then we have cutting edge research in energy and environment, and materials and interfaces, biomolecules and biotechnology. We are competitive in our stipends. And for the master's and the PhD, we have extended our application deadlines to July 1st for this year because of the pandemic. Though I have the deadlines here for the rest of the applications. And I would like to thank everybody again for their participation, and please join us again next week. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.